Adolf Hitler, one of the darkest figures in world history, played a significant role in shaping the 20th century, particularly with his anti-Semitic policies and genocidal actions. The impact of Hitler's policies on the world is so profound that discussions often arise about what modern history would look like if he had survived. So, if Hitler were alive today, would the conflict between Israel and Palestine exist in its current form? To answer this question, we must explore several possible scenarios that could have dramatically altered the course of history. Hitler's Nazi ideology was built on a foundation of anti-Semitism. The Holocaust during World War II led to the extermination of a large portion of Europe's Jewish population. If Hitler had survived and his ideology persisted, the situation for Jewish people would have been far more dire. The systematic extermination of Jews in Europe might have led to their complete eradication. In this scenario, the State of Israel, established in 1948, might never have come into existence. The possibility of the Jewish people establishing a state in the Middle East in a world where Hitler still had influence would have been extremely unlikely. Therefore, the Israel-Palestine conflict, as we know it today, might not have existed at all. The State of Israel was established in 1948 by a United Nations decision, largely motivated by the need to provide a homeland for the Jewish people after World War II. If Hitler had been alive, it would have been nearly impossible for such an international decision to be made. Nazi Germany would have vehemently opposed the creation of a Jewish state and applied international pressure to prevent it. In a scenario where Hitler had survived, the establishment of a Jewish state would have been highly challenging, potentially altering the political landscape of the Middle East entirely. In this case, the conflict between Jews and Arabs in the region might never have occurred, and the current Israel-Palestine issue might not have arisen. If Hitler had survived and Nazi ideology continued to influence global affairs, the balance of power in the Middle East would have shifted significantly. Hitler might have sought strategic alliances with the Arab world to form a united front against the Jews. This could have led to a different dynamic between the Arab world and the West, completely altering the balance of power in the Middle East. This scenario could have meant that Israel either never existed or existed in a very different form. Consequently, the Palestinian issue might not have emerged as it has today. A world where Hitler survived opens up many alternative history scenarios. Perhaps the Jewish people would have attempted to establish a state in a different region instead of Palestine, or Israel could have been founded under very different circumstances after Hitler's eventual death. In this case, the Israel-Palestine conflict might have developed in a completely different geographical and political context. Another scenario is that the Jewish people, under continued Nazi oppression, might have remained a diaspora without establishing a state. In this case, there would be no Jewish state on Palestinian land, and thus no Israel-Palestine conflict. A world where Hitler survived and maintained influence would be vastly different from the one we know today. Whether Israel would exist and whether there would be a conflict with Palestine would depend on the complex and uncertain nature of such a hypothetical world. One thing is certain: Hitler's survival would have led to significant changes in the history of the Middle East and the world, placing today's Israel-Palestine conflict in a completely different context. This type of hypothetical scenario reminds us of how complex and multi-layered history is. Hitler's survival wouldn't just alter the Israel-Palestine conflict, but would change many events and the fate of countless people around the world. So, if events and leaders that altered the course of history had not existed, what would the world look like today? These questions help us understand how fragile and open to change history truly is.